We'd like to hear from the speakers again. Because of the volume of our meeting today, we're asking everyone if you keep it to 1 minute or less. We don't like to interrupt people, so we ask you to work with us today. We look forward to hearing what you have to say. Please, you may begin.
Thank you. Because it's not, there I am. My name is Jackie Dillard-Foss. I represent the California Supported Living Network and the STEP program here locally in Sacramento. I'm proud to have been part of the Co-Felt Movers. I once again want to reiterate 2 years, 2,300 people. 10 years, you will have a mortality rate, so you might just have the developmental centers closed in 10 years because no one will have the opportunity to live the full inclusive lives that we want people to live. Many of the stories you see in front of you came from the California Supported Living Network, including Joaquin. I just want to reiterate one person, James, who left Lanterman Developmental Center. He was the 66th mover. And when I asked the 30-year psych tech that had worked with him, the closest person, what does James like in the community? He said, I don't know. You'll get to find out. He moved into Lanterman at the age of 11. He left there at the age of 49. He now works. He makes his own lunch. They said he could never be around food. So the keys on the keyboard are there for him. The dials on the stove are there for him. He's living a full life. And I see my 1 minute. I want to also say 110 people are not receiving excellent services according to the federal government. It's time to fully fund the community. I'm tired of the same conversation. And I get it. I do. Developmental centers are fully funded. I understand. It's time that the community gets some. So I'm tired of begging. I am tired of begging for the community.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Chairman Thurman, members of the committee. My name is Jim Shorter. I'm Executive Director of Golden Gate Regional Center. It's hard for me to divide the issues of developmental center and community. Over the years, I've heard this back and forth, but it's all the same to me. I'm kind of a living relic in the system. I've been here talking to the legislature for the last 45 years, talking about policy issues and about funding issues. Our system, a story of our system is a story of humanity. It's a story of service to people. And it's a story of brilliant, caring professionals who offer services to our folks. But I'm very concerned that the backbone of the system in the community is breaking. We have people, we're losing people both in the regional center system and in the community provider system because they have to live. I'm not one to say this.
Could I ask you to make your final statement, please?
I'm just going to give you some numbers then, if that's all the time I have. A social worker at Sonoma Developmental Center makes roughly $87,300. They've had increases from 2007 to 2014 of 36%, and there are additional increases built into the governor's budget.
Sorry, Mr. Shorter, I have to ask you to conclude, please. Thank you.
Okay, compare that to $32,000 in the core staffing formula for people working at the regional center. At Golden Gate Regional Center, we're off by 45%, not 10%, 45%.
Thank you, Mr. Shorter.
Our community system is the same.
Thank you.
Thank you, members, for hearing me. I'm also not clear if it's okay that I'm talking about this, but this addresses all the issues as well. My name is Debbie Ellis, and I am the chairperson for the service providers from the San Andreas Regional Center, and provider of service myself and a grandparent. I am here today to talk about the crisis that we are in as a provider and the crisis that we are facing staying in business. We cannot sustain providing the services, the various services from transportation to day service to early start with the rates that we are facing and have been taken away from us. We support the Lanterman Coalition with a recommendation for the 10% increase. We need to have some kind of cost adjusting cost-adjusted living, and we need to kind of look at how the regional centers also get their money. So if you would just please take all of that into consideration, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Before the next speaker starts, let me clarify on this issue. We're only taking public comment on the developmental centers. In the very next panel, we'll be talking about rate increases. So out of respect, so we hear everyone, I'd like to ask if you're in line to speak now, that you speak on the issue before us, the developmental centers. Thanks for waiting. Go ahead.
That's a lot of pressure, but I'll go ahead. My name is Terry, and I'm representing a Paradigm, the Salinas, Monterey area under San Andreas service providers. And I'd like to say identity is a hard road to travel, but the fact that you're here today as a panel and listening to us and listening to the voices of all the people who are here and all the families representing the DCs and the closures of the DCs, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members. My name is Raymond Fierro. I'm a provider for a supported living agency, and part of being a provider is what we're faced with is doing the assessments and accessing the individuals into the community and providing that quality of service. And we're at the ground roots, and just wanted to provide a testimony, and based on the quality of service that we provide for them is having the means to do so, and to provide that quality of service while coming out from centers like the Porterville, DC's coming out of Porterville. We want to provide the same type of services while transitioning out. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Terry DeBell. I am from Cash PCR, which is an organization representing families, which I'm a family member from Fairview and Porterville Developmental Centers. I'm also a member of the Future of the Developmental Centers Task Force and currently the Developmental Services Task Force. This is an issue very important to me. My brother passed away 15 years ago this month after living in the community for a short period of time and a long time in a developmental center and a long time at home before that. What I understand about this is it doesn't mean that DCs are bad and community is good. It means that everybody, if you don't get the services and support you need, particularly if you're fragile, you're going to have a bad outcome. I can match Tony and exceed his stories of movers who have had amazing successes. I have been following the people who moved out of Lanterman. It took that long to move them because it takes that long to develop services. It's not just the department who has to develop services. There is a whole community townships, all of the other regulations. It is extremely difficult and all the professionals on board, but it is certainly worth it. So any discussion of closure is really premature unless you're also talking about fully funding and supporting the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Soto, and I'm representing DDSO, Developmental Disability Service Organization. This is our 40th year of providing community services. Since we're not addressing the rate issue, I won't mention that we've been dealing with the rate from 2006, but I will mention that when the Allen Short Center first started, we provided services to residents of Stockton State Hospital, which eventually became Stockton Developmental Center. Residents came to our day program and participated in our activities and thrived. And once the developmental center closed, the people that were in our day program that moved to the community continued to come to our program, be involved. Some actually received employment. Some eventually started to live on their own. So there is success in closing developmental centers. Stockton State Hospital, Stockton Developmental Center is proof of that, and that was 25 years ago, I believe.
Thank you. I look forward to your comments on rate increases in the next panel discussion. Next speaker.
Thank you, Assembly members. My name is David Mulvey. I'm a retired service coordinator, 35 years in the system, and I represent the SEIU Developmental Disabilities Council. And I want to talk about the resource represented by the property that the developmental centers sit on. I know there's a process that's being discussed with Lanterman and with other regional centers of declaring it surplus and moving it to other purposes. I think that land was purchased and dedicated to providing housing for people with developmental disabilities. And until we're able to provide affordable housing in the community for people with developmental disabilities, that resource should not be declared surplus, but instead should be through lease arrangements or other arrangements that the value of that property should be transferred into developing desperately needed community-based affordable housing for people with developmental disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Will Sanford, Futures Explored. I also was a member of the D.C. Task Force, and out of that came a report that had 5 items. So far, to date, in year 2, one of those items was funded partially. There's no mention in the budget this year of the next steps in that. So my question would be is, when are we going to move on to the next 4 steps before we move on to the Developmental Services Task Force, which is talking about rates later? But we do have a plan for the DCs. Where are we with that? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Justin Espinoza, and I'm enrolled in an alliance, so I'm representing that. I'm obviously more higher functioning, but I'm just asking for our budgets not to be cut because it's already difficult enough for me to find a job, and it's a lot more difficult for everybody else to do it as well. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Dan Hoag, Los Trampas in Lafayette, California. So let me see if I've got this straight. We want to take a bunch of money and put it into a system that isn't working, that we're losing money on because the federal government isn't going to fund it because it's closing, and we have consensus that we really should close it already. So we're going to put a bunch of money into something that really should be closed, and by the time we actually make all of those corrections, it'll be time to close. And as an agency that serves individuals through the CPP project, we have a home right now that is a 4-bed home for individuals to move out of Sonoma Developmental Center that's been open for 1 year and 1 year, 1 month. 2 open beds in it still. What is the delay? What is taking so long? We have 2 individuals that were identified to go into that home, and we've got the DC putting the brakes on everything every time we turn around. And we have those 2 beds, 2 individuals ready to go. And here we're now looking at, they were identified in June of last year, and now we're looking at not entering them into the program until June of this year. Real problem. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for the great work you do at Los Trampas.
Hi, this is Catherine McCoy with San Andreas Regional Center. I work in the community placement plan there, and I helped with the closure of Ag News. I'm also here as a representative of SEIU Developmental Disabilities Council. I sit on the Delivery Service Task Force as well. And what I want to say is I support the closure process because I think it's important that if we're IPP driven, and I thank Assemblymember Thurman for his disclosure that he used to work at regional centers, so he understands what that's about. The IPP process has to be kept, and we have to do it carefully. We have to do it over time, and we have to do it with adequate funding, because we can't place these individuals twice. It has to be done once, and it has to be done right. And if you get it wrong, there's no way out. And what we have right now with the folks at Sonoma and with Fairview is we're down probably to some of the most significantly challenged people to place, and that takes, unfortunately, the most amount of funding to develop what we need in the community. So I just want us to be cautious about that. I know everybody wants to do that, but I think we need to be cautious. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry. Hey, this is Joe Downing here from an outfit called Progressive Employment Concepts, which is sponsored by Alta California Regional Center. And I would not have gotten here where I am today without Alta. I mean, I've got my own home, my own business. I'm very independent. I can thrive on my own. And if we cut funding to any of these programs, I'll probably end up in a care home, and I don't want that. And what else? So, and if I lose my business, I can't do the vacations that I like to take every summer with my mom. And living on my own, I have flourished. My roommate was in a care home, and if he hadn't gotten the help he got, he would still be in the care home. Unfortunately, would still have been in the care home, and I wouldn't have gotten to make friends outside of the home without. I wouldn't have met him if it wasn't progressive. I'd be stuck at home. So I don't. We can't cut the budgets. We can't do that. Can't cut funding. Is there anything else?
Now, you actually did a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Harry Taylor. I work for an organization called California Mentor, and we have developed more than a dozen homes for movers from Agnews and Landerman Developmental Centers, including many of those who were described as the most medically challenged of all. I'm really glad to hear that the movement toward actually making closure happen everywhere. It does not need to take 10 years. There are a lot of very creative, very resourceful, and very willing providers in the community working with the regional centers and Department of Developmental Services to make that happen a lot sooner than that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Tony Terman and committee. I'm here to represent the two successful transitions coming from Sonoma Development Center. Their name is Joyce and David. David is not able to walk. David is not able to make choices. Joyce is always pulling her hair. It's always bald in front of her hair. Now Joyce has hair without the use of any psychotropic medications. All of this convenient drugs being used to our client in the Sonoma Development Center takes a big effect in their health and their safety. And so now we're here as a residential care provider willing to help and provide a high standard of care. Let us do our job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Honorable Tony Thurman, and distinguished committee member, thank you for the opportunity to voice our difficulties. We are responsible for 18 difficult-to-serve and medically fragile adults in intermediate care facility. Challenging in many ways, but truly a blessing as we rewarded a genuine appreciation for the care we provided by families and friends, and foremost our client themselves. As we continue to face strict and evolving regulatory guidelines, including federal mandates, labor laws, liability insurance, and workman comps, to name a few, we are being asked to do more and expect less. We all know the outcome of the tight budgeting means to a very small business operation with no economic of scale to fall on, a substandard service. But to continue to fund an operation that serves only a few appealing developmental center is a total blunder to all the residential care providers who barely make it to the next pay period. While we continue to fund almost $500,000 per client per year in a developmental center, a large portion of are barely able to participate in a $400 summer camp every 2 years.
Thank you.
Honorable Chair and members, my name is Evelyn Abu Hassan. I'm on your panel about community services, but I wanted to take an opportunity to weigh in on the DC side of the issue. I represent Disability Rights California. We're a cross-disability organization. I want to say that we agree with many of the comments that former Assemblymember Erner said about closing the institutions and minimizing the loss of federal funds. We encourage that the property that's where the DCs currently stand be used for community-based housing for people with developmental disabilities that are going to be transitioning out into the community. This was done very successfully with Harbor Village down by Fairview. We encourage that. The same with Shannon's Mountain. I want to encourage the department and the Health and Human Services Agency to work to minimize loss of federal funds during the transition period, so those funds can be used in the community for people for appropriate community-based services and supports. And with that, I look forward to presenting on the community panel. Thank you.
We look forward to your presentation, Counselor. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kathleen Miller, and I represent Sonoma Developmental Center. I'm the president of the Family and Friends and Residents Association. and I feel like I'm a fish swimming upstream, but I'm going to say what I want to say. I'm concerned about this rush to closure, this fast, let's get this done quickly. I was a member of that D.C. task force, and that consisted of many opposing voices, but the one thing we all agreed on was that there needed to be a safety net for the DDS system, and that it is full of gaps right now. I'm going to talk about a couple of, let's call them gaps. Dental care. Right now, particularly for those who need anesthesia dental, they can't get it. Adaptation and repair of durable medical equipment, real crisis services for those who are getting kicked out of their community homes, real medication management for people like my son who are dual diagnosis. And the problem is you can't just throw money at this problem and expect it to be solved. You have to take time, you have to plan, and we have a Sonoma coalition that's working on that right now. And please, please don't rush, because if you do, people are going to suffer. People are already suffering with the downsizing, and some of our people are going to die. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Molly Dillon. I serve on the board of Parent Hospital Association at Sonoma Developmental Center, where my brother has lived for 14 years, now currently in a decertified unit, and he is doing great. I have another story. I've listened to stories about those who've moved out of DCs and who've done great. I have a different story. That's my brother's story. He was moved when Camarillo Developmental Center closed, lived in a private facility until he suffered a flare-up of mental illness. Then he was ejected from his home, put in a short-term psychiatric facility. They took him off all his meds. When he was too hard to handle, they over-medicated him into a catatonic state, and he almost died. Thank God there was a DC for him to return to then, and it took him years to come back from that. What will happen to my brother next time? I don't think there's an answer to that yet. And until there is, I don't think we're ready to close the DCs. I think we need to answer that question first. I would also ask that before we seriously consider closure of a DC, we pass legislation that makes the regional center and the private providers who are fully funded by the state subject to the Public Records Act, so we can really know what's going on in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. It's Sue North with California Disability Services Association. Just very quickly, 2 points. One, when we're looking at the backfill loss of federal funds, remember to double every number that you're handed, because it's the total cost of those beds, not just the fact that the federal government is dropping out of a portion of the funding. It becomes 100% state funds, and just those 4 units that the state dropped the appeal about, cumulatively, we're now, in this budget year, moving into the 4th fiscal year of doing this, and the ongoing added cost to state taxpayers has been $40 million with no improvement plan, no change, and we're still where we were 4 years ago, which was we're right around the corner of getting the federal funding back, and then we'll move on and look at these 4 cottages. It hasn't changed since the beginning, and at some point, leads me to the other point that I wanted to make, which is we feel as if we're at the brink of something, but we've been standing there now for going on 2 or 3 years. It is time to make a decision. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm Kobe Pizzati with the California Association of Psychiatric Technicians. We represent roughly 1,300 licensed and certified psychiatric technicians and psychiatric technicians assistants working in the developmental centers in Sonoma, Fairview, and Porterville. I would like to say that one of our members, now a former member, Brad Whitehead, was serving on the task force for the future of developmental centers, and he was an employee of Lanterman Developmental Center for 35 years before it was closed. He wanted to follow the individuals that he cared for into the community. However, the failed community state staffing program just would not allow it. Our developmental centers are the only places where you can find licensed direct level of care staff for everybody. Everybody there is licensed or certified. So basically, that is one of our main strong suits in being a developmental center. We support the governor's budget and his full funding, but we really oppose the idea of closing the developmental centers. That's just folly.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and other members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mark Victoria. I'm with AFSCME Local 2620. We represent about roughly 300 mental health professionals, including psychologists, licensed clinical social workers, and the individual program coordinators within the developmental centers. And of course, as you're towards the end of the line, a lot of what you're doing is echoing what other people have said. And so, just to echo what my colleague Kobe had just said as well, is just quality of care with the staffing that is there, and then also closing the developmental centers really removes a safety net within the entire system. So we are against the closures, and we just appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah. Hi, my name is Sarah. We are we work at UCP Working. We are disabled program, and we don't want this budget cut at all. I mean, I don't want to live in in some place where I can't, live to do things and to make friends. It's awful. I hate it. And it's got to stop. I'm tired of it. And I just hope that this budget cut will be over for good. And I pray to God for this. I want this budget cut finished.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sarah.
Hi, my name is Chris Anderson. I'm a disabled adult who receives services through California. With the 10% rate increase, our day programs will crumble or be forced to shut down, and we won't have enough staff to train the disabled people to get jobs in the community. Please help me. Please give us the 10% rate that we deserve. All of us disabled in California deserve it, and we're hurting. So stop it, please.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Joe Cashel. I'm an administrator of a CPP home. Actually, Dan spoke a minute ago about our home a little bit. I wanted to just talk a few minutes about, or less than a minute, about my experience at SDC. When I go there, I've spent many hours there observing clients to make the transition as smooth as possible for my clients coming out of Sonoma and into my home. The care there, what I want to point out is the staff pay rate there compared to the services they provide is completely off kilter with what my staff are paid and the services that we provide in the home. I've actually had to supervise 12 or 15 Sonoma clients in a room while I was observing the client because the staff left. My staff, 2 people on one client half the time, okay? It's a huge discrepancy. Sonoma does not provide good services. I've seen it there myself, and I encourage all of you to go yourselves and look. They do not provide good services, and they do need to be closed. 10 years is probably a good time, though.
Thank you.
I got it. Thank you. Tony, my friend, Mr. Thurman, Rick Hotchkins. I must say that I am a member of Capital People First here in Sacramento, run by and for people with developmental disabilities. I'm also a member of the Supported Life Institute's PAC committee, and also a member of the Department of Developmental Services Consumer Advisory Committee for Alpine, Colusa, El Dorado, Nevada, Placer, Sacramento, Sierra, Sutter, Yolo, and Yuba counties. Mr. Thurman, you know about the School for the Blind in Fremont. That's where I was, and that is very much like a developmental center. And I would disagree with one prior speaker who said that the services in the community are fully funded. They are not since the Schwarzenegger administration. The DCs are, so something's wrong with that picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskins. I think you represent more counties than I do in my assembly district. Thank you.
Probably true.
Next speaker.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to say, Assemblymember Grove, I'd like for you to share the crown of Queen for a day with Dion Aroner, or you could share it for the whole budget season. That's perfectly appropriate. I'm Stacy Sasson. I represent an agency here in Sacramento where we have quite a few DC movers. Quite a few of them are in those packets that you received. And I've heard a couple of parents and family members come up and say that, it won't work for their family members. And I'd like to invite you. You can find me in the hallway. I'll give you my business card. Please come and do a tour and see what's available for your family members, because we have a number of people who are too medically fragile or too behavioral to be in the community, and they're thriving. And I'd like for you to see that. I'd also like for you, Shannon, you were instrumental in a couple of the individuals that we moved out a couple of years ago, that it didn't take anywhere near 10 years. I think it was more along the lines of 30 days to get them out. So, 10 years, we don't really need that. And I don't really feel like the people at the DCs need to be incarcerated, if you will, for 10 more years. So please conclude. Okay, so in conclusion, they don't need to be there for 10 more years. We don't need 10 years to get them out. We can do it really quickly, and we can do it very successfully. But what we do need is 10% in our budget increased, because we can't afford to pay our folks like you guys pay at the developmental centers, $24 an hour. Our direct support professionals are making $10.50 an hour, and they deserve way more than that. So I'd like to say I am here in support of the 10% increase. Thanks.
Thank you. I assume you're starting our next panel. Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Michelle Ramirez, representing On My Own Independent Living Services, also a member of CDSA and California Supported Living Network. And I have had the honor and privilege to help move many clients out of several DCs in the 9 years that I've been with my company. And I've seen lives change amazingly. The stories I've given and shared over the years up here have been amazing. And I just want to say that some of the numbers thrown out today, $44 million lost federal funds is too much. $530,000 per resident per year in an archaic system is too much. 10 years is too long. We just have to look at this. We have to really look at this and plan. But I need to be able to pay my direct service staff half of what a psych tech gets in a DC. We need to move that money into the community and improve lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carlene Holden with Easter Seal. I've participated in the hearings for many years now on the same topic. I've got to say we've learned a lot of lessons over the years. Many of them have been painful, but the quality of the support that people are getting when they are moving literally improves every year. I appreciate the expertise you guys are bringing to the table to make these decisions, and I think things are getting better and we are moving in the right direction. Clearly, we're willing to partner to make it move even smoother and more efficiently. Thank you all.
Thank you, and thanks for your offer of help. Are you speaking on this issue? Very good. Thank you all for your great comments. We'll be moving to our next panel on rate issues. And, for those of you who did squeeze in a comment in the last panel on rate issues, please don't feel obliged to say it again. We hear you. And we agree that our agencies that serve do so much with so little. And we know that it's time to make some changes. We're going to have that conversation.